Your bank just froze your account, not because you committed a crime, not because you bounced a check, because you posted something online that the algorithm flagged as problematic. Sound dystopian? It's already happening. The social credit system isn't coming to the West. It's already here. We just call it something different. We call it deplatforming. We call it ESG scores. We call it financial inclusion policies. But strip away the euphemisms and you'll find the exact same architecture of control that China built, just with better marketing. Control without chains. Today, I'm going to show you how the infrastructure for a Western social credit system has been quietly assembled while you were distracted by culture wars and political theater. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your digital footprint might soon determine whether you can buy a house, get a job, or even board a plane. And the most disturbing part, most people will welcome it. China's blueprint. Let's start with what China actually built, not the Western media's cartoon version, the real system. In 2014, China launched its social credit system with a simple premise: reward good behavior, punish bad behavior. Sounds reasonable, right? That's exactly what they wanted you to think. The system tracks everything. Pay your bills on time, points go up. Jaywalk, points go down. Criticize the government online, your score craters. And here's where it gets dark. Your score affects your entire life. Low scores mean no high-speed train tickets, no plane flights. Your children can be denied access to good schools. You become a second-class citizen without any trial, any judge, any due process. The essence of propaganda is not lying. It's the power to decide what counts as truth. By 2020, over 27 million airline tickets and 6 million train tickets had been denied to people deemed untrustworthy by the algorithm. The Chinese government doesn't need to imprison dissidents anymore. They just make their lives unlivable. Now Western leaders watch this unfold. They didn't condemn it. They took notes. But here's what terrifies me about what's happening next. The banking weapon. February 2022. The Canadian trucker convoy protests vaccine mandates. Agree with them or not, that's not the point. What happened next should terrify everyone across the political spectrum. Prime Minister Trudeau invoked emergency powers. Within days, banks froze the accounts of protesters and anyone who donated to them. No court order, no criminal charges, just financial execution at the push of a button. Your money isn't really yours anymore. Crowdfunding platforms were ordered to hand over donor information to the government. People who gave $50 to a legal protest woke up to find their bank accounts frozen. A single mother, a retired veteran, small business owners. Their financial lives destroyed not for what they did, but for what they believed. If you're starting to see the pattern, hit like and subscribe to keep exposing what they hide, because what comes next connects all the dots. The Canadian government showed the world that in the digital age, your access to your own money is a privilege, not a right. And governments everywhere were watching. Money as control. The infrastructure that made this possible didn't appear overnight. It was built piece by piece, crisis by crisis. And that brings us to something even more insidious. The Trojan horse. Environmental, social, and governance scores. On the surface, it sounds like corporate responsibility. Companies being rated on how green they are, how diverse their boards are, how ethical their practices seem. But dig deeper and you'll find something far more sinister. ESG scores are now being used to determine which companies can access capital. Major investment firms controlling trillions of dollars, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, openly state they will defund companies with low ESG scores. When you control money, you control behavior. When you control behavior, you control people. But here's the twist nobody talks about. ESG criteria are expanding. It's not just about carbon emissions anymore. It's about what causes companies support, what their employees post online, what political positions they take. PayPal tried to implement a policy fining users $500 for spreading misinformation. They only backed down after massive backlash. But the intent was clear. Your financial access is becoming tied to your social compliance. Small businesses are already being denied bank accounts for operating in legal but politically unfavorable industries. Gun shops, cryptocurrency companies, conservative media outlets. The pattern is undeniable. And speaking of patterns, what if I told you they've already built the technology to track everything you do? Digital identity trap. The European Union is rolling out a digital identity wallet. By 2030, every EU citizen will have one. It will store your ID, your driver's license, your medical records, your banking information, your educational credentials, all in one convenient app. Convenient for whom? Control. The UK is testing similar systems. Australia has its MyGov digital ID. The United States is piloting mobile driver's licenses in over 30 states. They're selling it as efficiency. No more carrying multiple cards, no more paperwork, but read the fine print. These systems create a single point of failure and a single point of control. When everything about you exists in one digital location, controlled by the government, they don't need to arrest you to control you. They just need to flip a switch. One switch, total control. In China, your social credit score is linked to your digital identity. Think that can't happen here? The World Economic Forum has openly published papers on linking digital ID to social behavior metrics. They call it building trust in the digital age. Trust is just another word for compliance. The infrastructure is being built right now. The only question is when they'll turn it on. But there's something even more troubling happening in plain sight. Corporate enforcers. Here's the genius of the Western model. The government doesn't have to do the dirty work. They've outsourced authoritarianism to corporations. Think about it. In China, the state controls your score directly. In the West, private companies do it for them with plausible deniability. Fascism should more properly be called corporatism, because it is the merger of state and corporate power. Twitter files revealed how the FBI regularly flagged accounts for suppression. Government agencies pressured social media companies to censor specific viewpoints. They called it combating misinformation. They meant controlling the narrative. But it goes far beyond social media. Insurance companies are using social media data to set rates. Employers are scanning applicants' online histories before hiring. Credit agencies are experimenting with social media sentiment analysis to determine creditworthiness. Everything you post is being scored. You're already living in a soft social credit system. You just haven't felt the edges yet. The companies don't coordinate through official channels. They don't need to. They share the same ideology, attend the same conferences, hire from the same elite universities. It's a class consciousness that enforces conformity without explicit orders. And what happens when these systems merge with what's coming next? CBDC and GAM, central bank digital currencies, CBDC. This is the end game. Every major economy is developing them. China's digital yuan is already in circulation. The European Central Bank is testing the digital euro. The Federal Reserve is actively researching a digital dollar. They promise efficiency, faster payments, financial inclusion, lower transaction costs. Promises hide purpose, but here's what CBDC actually enable. Every transaction becomes visible to the government. Every purchase can be tracked, analyzed, and flagged. And unlike cash, digital currency can be programmed. Imagine money that expires if you don't spend it. Money that can only be spent on approved goods. Money that automatically deducts fines for social infractions. Money that simply stops working if you're deemed problematic. 1. Full transaction surveillance. 2. Programmable spending limits. 3. Automatic government deductions. 4. Instant account freezing. This isn't speculation. The Bank for International Settlements, the central bank of central banks, has published papers discussing programmable money. China's digital yuan already has expiration dates built in. They've shown us exactly what they're planning to do. The only thing missing is the crisis that will convince people to accept it. And that crisis is being manufactured right now. Crisis by design. Every expansion of government power follows the same formula. Create a crisis, or exploit an existing one. Offer a solution that increases control. make refusal socially unacceptable. The Patriot Act came after 9/11. The surveillance state was sold as protection against terrorism. Mass financial monitoring came after 2008. Bank controls were sold as preventing another collapse. Never let a good crisis go to waste. COVID accelerated digital tracking by a decade. Health passes normalized the idea that your access to society could be conditional. People who questioned the narrative were deplatformed, fired, isolated. And most troubling of all, a significant portion of the population cheered it on. The next crisis is already being prepared. Climate emergency declarations could justify carbon allowances, tracking your consumption. Cybersecurity incidents could justify mandatory digital ID. Financial instability could justify CBDC as the safe alternative to unstable banks. They don't need your permission. They need your fear. Each crisis tightens the noose a little more. Each emergency makes the unthinkable normal. And speaking of what's being normalized, normalization engine. The most insidious part isn't the technology. It's the psychology. Right now, millions of people are being conditioned to accept, even demand social credit systems. They're just not calling it that. Same system, different name. Think about how online discourse has shifted. People publicly celebrate when someone loses their job over a tweet from 10 years ago. Doxing has been normalized as accountability. Public shaming campaigns are dressed up as justice. We've created a culture that punishes wrongthink and rewards conformity. The technology just makes it more efficient. You're already self-censoring, and you know it. Surveys show that over 60% of Americans say they self-censor their political views. They're afraid of professional or social consequences. That's not freedom of speech dying through law, it's dying through culture. The Chinese system just made explicit what's becoming implicit here. And here's the darkest truth. Many people will welcome it. Safety always sounds better than freedom, until you have neither. After years of online chaos, many will see a system that punishes bad behavior as progress. They'll accept the trade, until they are the ones being punished. But is there any way to stop this? Resistance points. The system isn't invincible. It has pressure points. First, cash. As long as physical currency exists, untraceable transactions are possible. Every move toward a cashless society is a move toward total control. Countries like Sweden are nearly cashless. Notice how they are also furthest along in digital ID implementation. If you want a vision of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face, forever. Defend cash with everything you have. Second, decentralization. Bitcoin, whatever you think of it, represents money that governments can't control. That's precisely why they hate it. Decentralized communication networks, encrypted messaging, mesh networks, these create spaces outside the panopticon. Cash crypto freedom. Third, local community. The system's power depends on atomized individuals dependent on central institutions. Strong local communities, churches, civic organizations, parallel institutions create resilience. When your neighbor can help you, you don't need the government's permission. Fourth, awareness. Knowledge. The system works best in darkness. Every person who understands what's being built is a person who might resist it. Share this information. Have these conversations. Make the invisible visible. But ultimately, everything depends on one final factor: the choice ahead. History teaches us that systems of control rarely announce themselves. They arrive gradually, each step seemingly reasonable, each expansion justified by crisis or convenience. By the time people recognize the cage, the door has already closed. First they came for the dissidents, and I did not speak out. We stand at a crossroads. Down one path lies a future where your access to society depends on your compliance score, where wrong opinions mean wrong life outcomes, where every transaction, every communication, every relationship is monitored, analyzed, and judged. Down the other path lies the hard work of maintaining freedom, of building parallel systems, of refusing convenience that comes with invisible chains, of being called paranoid until you're proven right. The infrastructure is being built right now. The question isn't whether they'll try to implement it. The question is whether enough people will say no. The Chinese government didn't ask permission. Neither will ours. They'll just keep building, testing, normalizing, until one day you wake up and realize the walls were always there. You just never noticed them closing in. Every pattern I've shown you today is documented. The banking freezes, the ESG expansion, the digital ID rollouts, the CBDC development. These aren't conspiracy theories, they're corporate press releases and government white papers. Their own words. The social credit system coming to the West won't look exactly like China's. It'll be softer, more sophisticated, wrapped in the language of safety, sustainability, and inclusion. But the destination is the same. A world where your participation in society requires your compliance with those in power. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. You now have knowledge that most people don't. That makes you dangerous to the system and valuable to the cause of freedom. Use it wisely. If you made it this far, comment "Unplugged from the Matrix" if you refuse to comply quietly. Every government lies. Every corporation serves its own interests. The question isn't whether they are building this system. The question is whether you'll let them finish. Power fears informed citizens. Be the citizen they fear. Like and subscribe to keep exposing what they don't want you to see.